So here we go. Welcome to another edition of the League One Lowdown. Today I'm joined by Daniel Clark, the man who covers all things Exeter City ahead of this season. Daniel, thanks for joining me first of all. How you doing, my friend?
Yes, it's not too bad. It's been another week of just waiting for stuff essentially, and we're just getting ready for the final pre-season friendly on Saturday afternoon against Torquay United, our local neighbours.
Indeed. And it's not long now until the first game of the season, July 30th. It's going to be interesting. And Daniel, Exeter back in League One after 10 years, automatic promotion. Quickly recap last season, and I'm sure Exeter fans are happy that they're back in Tier 3.
Yeah, it was a strange season last season. It started, wasn't the best start. We didn't score for the first 4 games. It was a slow start. We had a club record 20-game unbeaten run going out through the September, October, November period, in which there was, whilst they weren't losing any games, they were drawing far too many of the games in that process, and sort of we're on the fringes of the playoffs. Then, we lost a bad time at the start of December, and then basically a month off when COVID hit and other kind of weather-related postponements, and it just sort of gave, it perhaps came at the right time just to have a bit of a squad reset. It meant obviously loads of games in hand going into the back part of the season, but that they made them work. We didn't lose. I think we only lost 6 or 7 games in the league throughout the whole season, and just rode that momentum as from the back half of the season. There was a period start of February where we won 4 games in a row, 3 of which were with 90th minute winners, and that you suddenly it went from this is a season where it's going to be another playoff campaign in and around that feature to actually I think we're going up here kind of thing. And then you just kept that momentum going, and eventually caught up with Forest Green, who were late February. We were 20 points behind them to end on the same number of points with them. I don't think anyone was even thinking about the title until promotion had already been sealed with that magical day at home to Barrow, and then we had to do it Exeter City's usual way, having conceded a bizarre own goal where a throw-in comes back off the post and hits the goalkeeper in the face and goes in. And then, get the equaliser, and then the academy product and captain Matt J scores the winner 10 minutes from time, and finally ends, those 10 years in League Two, and not having to go through the playoffs as well, which is, I think everyone was thankful of, given I don't think anyone would want another trip to Wembley, which ends in disappointment, having had far too many of them in recent years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, playoffs can be a lottery, and definitely in League Two. It's there's so many different teams who have had to go through the playoffs, and they get to the final and they lose, or they lose in the semi-finals. But of course, Town fans, when they saw Exeter City getting promoted, they thought, "Oh dear, a long trip down there. We've got Plymouth now. We've got Exeter." But what is the current mood then? Currently, at Exeter City, of course, they're happy being back in League One. Matt Taylor, of course, the manager. What's the current mood so far?
It's a sort of a strange one. Sort of the players obviously last season was a very tight knit squad. They sort of all seemed to get on with each other off the pitch. Everyone seemed happy all the time, and bar a couple of fringe players and our on loan goalkeeper Cameron Dawson, who's gone back to Sheffield Wednesday. They haven't lost anyone in the summer, which is obviously on one hand a very good thing, because I think they were expecting some probably 1 or 2 to go, bids coming in from higher ranked clubs, and have them in the past. Of course, on the other hand, we haven't actually signed anyone yet this summer, which is there's definitely a little bit of concern amongst some of the fans about this, as to having gone from we're trying to get 1 or 2 in before pre-season starts, and they've been back for a month and we still haven't got anyone in, kind of thing. And there's a sense of a sort of a mixture between an element of the fan base who just need, it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter if they're actually any good, it doesn't matter if they're going to improve on what we've already got or not, we just need to make some signings. There's others who are sort of going, oh, hang on a minute here, we don't need to, there's no point signing players who, once everyone's fit, aren't going to be in the squad and aren't going to add anything. They're still trusting that last season, players came in who perhaps at the time, people looking at and going, really, we've signed him? And then he becomes a star player in the course of the season. I think there's as time goes on, there is going a little bit of concern. Obviously, the League One season starts in a week's time. Our only goalkeeper at the club is a 17-year-old or a 37-year-old goalkeeping coach. We've effectively got one fit striker at the moment who, had 2 long injury spells out last season with hamstring injuries, so can't play every game anyway. There's a couple of key positions where players need to come in and they haven't come in, but there's still a hope and trust that before the season does start, they will get the signings that they want. But I think it's been a difficult summer in terms of there's been a couple of deals that look done, and then at the last minute the parent club pulled out of loan arrangements, or players who they've put a good contract in front of them and have moved somewhere else because they're on higher money, or have gone, not so much the money, but didn't want to relocate their family and have taken a slightly lower wage so they don't have to move house. And I think there's definitely been a bit of frustration that deals that they thought were going to happen haven't happened yet. They've missed out on a few targets, and obviously time is running out before the season starts. But I think they're still definitely sort of going for the quality over quantity approach. And if we can before you get someone in, then maybe so. But they don't seem to be panicking and just making signings for the sake of signings at this stage.
Yeah, I was double checking now. I was like, Exeter made no signings. I was like double checking everywhere. I was like, just to make sure, and it is actually correct. And it is, yeah, it's a bit crazy to think that really. We're 1 week away until the opening day of the season, and there's not even like one loan signing or whatever. But Daniel, let's talk about some of the players that are there. Of course, it's always good to keep the players that got you promoted and give them a chance in League One. Of course, Matt J, you mentioned, the captain. He's going to be one of the key players. But name some other players who we should look out for this season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the back end of last season, it's bar the goalkeeper, it's probably going to be the same side that it starts this season that finished last season. And when you were going through them, pretty much all of them you'd look at and go, yeah, he's good enough for League One. I'm happy with them in League One. So it's not so much concerns about it's the depth belong that. But obviously in that starting lineup, I think one of the key reasons that we got promotion last season was Sam Stubbs coming into the side in January, a year after we actually first signed him. Had basically missed a whole year with injury. Came in and immediately looked like a top quality, a centre half who shouldn't be anywhere near League Two. He was, solid, just won every challenge, won every header. Marshalled that defence brilliantly. He's got this long-standing knee injury, so we're not 100% sure how fit he'll be for the start of the season. But if he's fit, he's a brilliant centre half. Obviously, I think Josh Key's a name that I think a lot of League One fans will have heard of. He's been linked with moves higher up the pyramid, and he perhaps didn't quite have it, his best season last season, but was still involved in so much of the play going forward. Driving forward from a right back, right wing back position, taking on defenders, creating chances, and I think partly the reason he didn't quite have as good a season as some people might be expecting is that teams were sort of targeting, okay, well, we'll mark him out the game, which obviously then creates space elsewhere on the pitch for some of the other players. I mean, in the centre of midfield, obviously, it will probably be Archie Collins and Tim Dieng who will start the season. Archie Collins, I think he's only sort of 22, but seems to have been in that side for years now. He's been there for 3 or 4 years, played 100, 150 odd games, and it looks like he's got the game to play at a higher level. Tim Dieng came in off the back of 2 relegations in a row with Southend, and it was sort of, okay, well, this is I think he was one that people were really initially sort of, why have we signed this player? But was absolutely brilliant last season. I think he scored 14 or 15 goals. Made plenty of assists as well. So the pitch, just controlling the game, getting forwards, adding goals to the strike force. And then up front, Giovanni Brown, who was another one, came into the the side having not scored in about 40 games at Colchester, and eventually when he did start scoring, he scored some brilliant goals. He just seems to have so much time on the ball to pick passes, create whatever he needs to do, and open up the game. And Sam Nombe, up front, he causes defensive, so many problems. He's got pace, he's got strength and physicality. He can finish, and if he can stay fit, he'll get 15 to 20 goals a season, you think, and that might be enough to help Exeter City over the line, because the first choice 11 looks as if it's more than able to compete in League One. They've beaten, last season we played a few League One sides in the Cups and beaten them and more than matched them. It's just about a little bit of depth beyond that in terms of, with having not brought anyone in this summer, and also the goalkeeping position with, Harry Lee, he's 17, he's incredibly highly rated by the club, but I also don't think they will think he's, ready to start League One this season. But at the moment, he's probably going, unless the signing comes in the next week, he's played every minute of pre-season. He will probably have to start the first game of the season. Obviously, this, it was only 9 days before the start of last season when Exeter City signed Cameron Dawson as the goalkeeper, and in the exact same position as they were this season. But that's probably the potential weak spot at the moment. Obviously, he's highly rated, but he's 17. It's a big ask for anyone at that age to play, men's football, let alone the third tier, and the lack of depth up front. Sam Nombe, beyond him, there isn't really anyone else. Sonny Cox is 17, another incredibly highly rated player, but he picked up an injury in pre-season, so he's not fit at the moment to start. So they're the areas where I think they're looking for signings to come in. But the first choice 11, if everyone is fit and available, on paper at least, looks like it should be able to compete in this division.
Yes, that's 17-year-old goalkeeper in League One. That is an interesting one. We shall see. And of course, the transfer window's still got a month to go. When the first game kicks off, there's still going to be a month, so there's always going to be deals. Premier League clubs will then allow their loan players go out when they sort their teams out. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of a lot of business done for Exeter in the end of the window. So Daniel, your thoughts for this season ahead for Exeter? I don't know if they will be put down as favourites to go down. Of course, normally the newly promoted teams are, but you saw last year all the promoted teams from League Two last year did really well. Cambridge, Cheltenham did really well. Morecambe had to battle relegation, but what do you think for Exeter City this season?
It's one that I think there's going to be an element of slightly wait and see as to how, obviously the side that starts, it's a July start to the season. The transfer window September. I think you're going to play sort of the fifth of the season before clubs have actually made all their signings, which is going to be quite an interesting position to be in. That clubs that are really strong now might not be as strong. They lose players before September, or you make 8 new signings and you're basically a new side. But I think coming off the back of the promotion last season, I think the impression looking at some of the the squads around, and particularly how we competed against clubs in League One. I know it's only cups, but we probably were the better side against Cambridge in the FA Cup when we unluckily lost to them. We're the better side against Cheltenham in the Papa John's Trophy. Should have beaten Portsmouth in that trophy as well, but conceded 2 goals in stoppage time to lose. You're looking at sort of matching yourself against those clubs, and none of those clubs were struggling, and you're matching them, which sort of makes you think, I don't think a relegation battle is quite where they're pitching themselves. I think they're sort of put in that sort of somewhere sort of 13th to 18th kind of position. I think everyone would take at this stage of the season. Obviously, the fact that they haven't managed to strengthen this summer, they're not weaker, but they're not strong. They might reassess that position as to if it's going to be a successful season, or what success is. I think the aim obviously is going to be don't go down. I mean, that's the having spent 10 years in the bottom position, then to go down first season would be a big disappointment. But if they went down and then came straight back up, but in a stronger position because you haven't overspent all your money on gambled on staying up and then bankrupted yourself, that's no good for the club at all. But I think there'll be an element of just sort of see how the season goes. I think there's the fixtures. It's a reasonably kindish start for Exeter as well. I don't think Off the top of my head, I think other than Wickham, there's no one who you sort of people are thinking probably in that title race for the first month or two of the season. So there could be a chance to get some, early points on the board, put yourself in a good position, and then can strengthen as, August goes on. I think, there was a slight concern that coming into the end of the season, we're going to need to get points on the board. Look, on paper at least, looks absolutely horrible. With loads of sides you expect to be right at the top of the table in the last month, but obviously, football's not played on paper. It could, some of these sides like Sheffield Wednesday and Derby, and I think we play Ipswich right near the end of the season as well. They might look like the start of the season they're going to be in a title race. They could be 12th and the season over by that stage, and actually becomes quite an easy, a much more comfortable game than you expect. But I think some of the bookies do have Exeter in the bottom four at this stage. I'd be slightly surprised if that's where they ended up. I think they're better than some of the sides. I think they'll do better than Forest Green, who seem to have lost a key part of the team that came up, and they sort of completely fell away as last season went away. And trying to, in terms of some of the other pushers, I don't think Port Vale and they're a good side, but are they any better than Exeter City? Possibly not. And then some of the likes of Fleetwood and Morecambe and Accrington, who traditionally have struggled in the division. I think on paper at least, Exeter will fancy their chances of finishing above those sides. So a sort of a comfortable, anonymous lower half mid-table season, I think after the last 7 or 8 years would everyone would absolutely be happy with, and 3 games to go, nothing to play for would be quite nice.
I'm sure. And let's talk about the head-to-heads quickly. Victory Town, Exeter, and I've still got scars from my trips down Exeter for the cup defeats. Of course, in the penalty shootout, and also in the Pat John's Trophy, where Lee Martin, a former Town player, scoring late on to knock us out of that. Of course, we travelled to Exeter in November, and then it's the final home game of the season for Town at Portman Road in April, and that could be, as you said, it could be a very different time there. It could be a time where Town are fighting for promotion, winning the league, whatever, or it could just be a dead rubber. Both teams playing for nothing, pretty much. Hopefully not. But what can we expect from an Exeter side when we face you?
I think it's going to be, there'll be a side that I think Matt Taylor sort of been saying throughout pre-season, they're not going to be short of fitness. They're going to keep going to the end of the games. Last season, there was an awful lot of games in which they scored goals in the last 10 minutes to, snatch a draw or turn draws into victories, and they'll keep going at the end. They look like to, get down and play, and play football in a sense that they can. It looks like we're going to stick with the same system as last season. So three at the back, wing backs, 2 in midfield, and then sort of 2 sort of number 10s in behind the striker. Trying to work the ball through the lines. Get in behind either through balls over the top or the wing backs driving forward and creating chances. There's not perhaps in recent years I've been used a little bit of a soft touch and not having that physicality. But last season, for the first time in a long time, that wasn't the case. They had players who were getting stuck in. They were winning the physical battles. Standing up and rather than being bullied, were bullying opposition out of games, which, I can't remember the last time Exeter, were doing that to teams. But, it's a reasonably young and inexperienced squad, so there might be some, players will make mistakes in there, but they'll look to give it a go and, play their own game. A lot of the time, they don't often pay too much attention to, other sides and sort of go, well, they don't tend to sort of go match up, make a match up with the opposition. They don't go, we change, well, we're going to drop up 3 players to make sure we're blocking them off. It will be, if we play our game, we'll win. Whether that quite works as much, and whether that style will have to change, I guess that will see how the season starts, to be honest. And then, obviously the penultimate game at the back end of the season will all depend, I guess, where the sides are in the league, how important it is, who needs the points more, if anyone needs the points. If it's could be a promotion party, could be anything really. I guess, that will depend on how the season goes. And, I think Exeter will try and, having been 10 years in the bottom division, will try and bring a lot of fans to some of these grounds, because obviously it's new grounds. It's not playing the same teams every single season over and over again. They were getting, best attendances for 7-8 years at the back end of last season, a couple, 2 or 3 sellouts near the end of the season, which there hasn't been for, a long time. Well, and I think the hope will be that the start of the season will be the same, and then it will probably, attend to how performances are going on the pitch and results. But there does, it seems like people are looking forward to the season, even if slightly concerned as to how it actually is going to fare, once the football gets underway.
Indeed, not long to go now. Well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me. Any other business, anything else you want to mention, my friend?
No, I think that should be all. And, look forward to you coming down to Devon and seeing how the game goes when, Ipswich goes on. And obviously good luck to you guys for the season as well.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thanks very much for joining me. Let us know your thoughts, everybody, on Exeter, on town, and bring on this season. It's going to be exciting. Bye-bye for now.